guys enjoyed that opening panel and that it set the scene for the following workshop. In this next workshop, we are going to dive a little bit deeper on how you can make money using all of these different formats. So first up, we invite Matt Tanner from Concord Music Publishing onto the stage.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt Tanner. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I'm the VP at Concord Music Publishing ANZ and broadly work across the APAC region. I actually first visited MUCON 10 years ago in 2014, so it's lovely to be back amongst some great musical and creative minds. And so thank you to MUCON and the Gig Life Pro team for inviting me back. So Concord is a privately owned independent creative rights company that develops, manages and acquires sound recordings, musical publishing rights, theatrical performance rights and narrative content across 4 distinct creative divisions. And we hold the rights to approximately 1.2 million copyrights. So I'm just working out the tech. There we go. Concord Music Publishing has an artist and writer roster that spans names from such as Daft Punk and Mark Ronson to the Pink Floyd and Phil Collins catalogues. The catalogue also includes Rodgers and Hammerstein catalogue and Boozy and Hawkes catalogue, which is the largest specialist catalogue in the world. The Concord label group comprises multiple active labels including Loma Vista, Concord Jazz, Fantasy Records, Fearless Records, Pulse Records, who just had a big hit with Tommy Richmond's $1 Million Baby, and heritage catalogues such as Stax, Sugar Hill, Nitro, Razor and Tie, to name a few. The Concord label group has 275,000 active song recordings and includes over 300 Grammy winners and 400 US gold, platinum and diamond certifications. The Concord Theatricals team is perhaps the world's most significant theatrical company, comprising catalogues of the Rodgers and Hammerstein Theatricals, Samuel French, Tams and the Andrew Lloyd Webber collections. And Concord Originals is the narrative and content creative division, and the team develops and produces stories anchored by Concord's artists, music and theatrical works. Most recently, Let the Canary Sing, the Cyndi Lauper documentary, and the Stax Soulsville docu-series that was recently nominated for a couple of Emmys. So Concord is what's called a full-service music publisher, and the services that music publishing company typically offers a songwriter. I'm running through these fairly quickly, and I'm not going to sort of super deep dives because of time, and I've got a bunch to get through. So typically all publishers at the core and fundamentally what they offer is copyright administration. So the registration of songwriters' works with relevant PROs, copyright management and making sure songwriters retains their appropriate ownership percentages of their work. The copyright teams also monitor and enforces copyright infringements claims and making sure that the songwriter's intellectual property is protected. Royalties collection really goes hand in hand with the copyright administration. So the collection of performance royalties, mechanical royalties, they manage royalties from the reproduction of the songwriter's music through sales, CDs, vinyl, digital downloads, streaming. Royalties generated by synchronization and licensing, collecting performance fees when music's used in film and TV and video games and other visual media, and of course print royalties. The creative services offered by music publishers, which is sort of partly my division in A&R. We do a lot of song placement and pitching songwriters' works to label A&Rs, management artists where appropriate. We're also very active in sourcing collaborative opportunities, co-writing opportunities for our writers, our artists, with other songwriters, artists and producers to create new music. The synchronization team, I'm getting these last two, I've switched these two because licensing generally comes after synchronization. The synchronization team are really integral in pitching our songwriters' music to TV, film, commercial, video games, trailers, basically anything visual media where there's an end user. And they spend a lot of their time digging through the catalogue, finding great tracks to pitch based on leads or briefs that come from music supervisors or productions that that team is working from or working with. Licensing is key in that process as well, because they're licensing the uses that the sync team are finding. They negotiate sync deals, they negotiate the fees and the terms that those uses, the fees that use in the visual media. They're also clearing rights with the songwriters when a request comes up for them. Typically when we're speaking to writers and managers, they're interested in the types of deals that and the deal structures that music publishers offer. And I'd say that it's very rare that many deals look identical when you take into consideration terms, territories, splits, an exclusive agreement or admin agreement, advances, rollovers, retention. It's rare that two look the same. And often the types of deals differ from territory to territory. The UK and Australia look similar because our law structure is fairly similar. The US is quite different in the terms of the structures that their deals look like. And within the US, Nashville deals are quite different again. These are, they often depend on local laws, local traditions, and the needs of writers within each of those markets. So full publishing deal or exclusive songwriting arrangement is probably the most common or the most well-known. The music publisher usually owns the copyright of the songwriter's compositions for a specified term and retention period. The services provided by the publisher, they generally offer that full suite of services that I went through on that prior page. And there is usually an advance attached to those deals that is recoupable against future royalties. A co-publishing deal is most common in the US, I would say. We don't see that a lot in Australia or UK. And the copyright ownership in a co-publishing deal or a co-pub deal is split between the songwriter and the publisher. The services provided are very similar in that that's full suite of services that we spoke about before, and there's always an advance, nearly always an advance attached to a co-publishing deal. An administration deal, we have a lot of writers and managers ask about admin deals. That is where a songwriter retains the ownership in the copyrights, and usually the services provided by the publishers are predominantly administration and collections, and that will differ publisher to publisher. Some publishers do still offer that suite of other services, but the splits are very much in favour of the writer, and they again retain ownership. Rarely is there advances attached to admin deals, with the exception of some admin deals are with already developed catalogues that have earning copyrights in them, and there's sort of pipeline income that can be projected and advanced upon. Single song agreements and specific work. Single songs are fairly popular now because the virality of some songs. Some publishers are doing single song deals or single work deals because a single song may be all in that catalogue that is going to have a moment. So the songwriter or the songwriters really kind of need that moment to be exploited and collected on. They've become common, in probably the TikTok era more than ever before. Specific works are generally related to kind of heritage catalogues or key catalogues that are kind of more genre-based. And finally, joint venture deals. We don't do a lot of joint venture deals, but there are key catalogues that are perhaps management or label-based publishing catalogues where that creative team really need an engine room, and so they'll joint venture or join up with a publisher to really kind of drive the copyright and collections. So the publisher and us in this case would be really doing the back end work, and the front end is sort of handled by that creative team, the management team or the label team. I'm mindful of time here, so I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, and I could speak for hours or days about all these different streams. So, I mean, maybe you want to take a photo of those or quickly take notes, but the key streams of income for monetizing publishing, and some are more passive and some are more active. Performance royalties, mechanical royalties, synchronization is obviously a fairly active form of generating income. Print music royalties, grand rights, micro-sync licensing, which is within the user-generated content era, is sort of becoming more and more important to a lot of writers. Digital emerging platforms, sampling, interpolation, licensing is quite common now, and people are proactive in clearing samples far more often than perhaps they used to be. Blanket license fees, I'm not sure about all territories, but certainly in Australia and the UK there's a lot of blanket license TV use that we still actively pitch for. And that is that there's no clearance needed if you're registered with those PROs. Those programs or those productions have pre-arranged blanket license agreements with the PROs in each territory, and they can pick and choose whatever they want to play, and you'll be paid through the back end. And licensing for non-musical products, and that's typically lyrics on merchandise or on products. Priya and I spoke before about, oh sorry, I really ran over that last one, didn't I? There it is. Okay. We spoke about being proactive as a writer and being proactive with your publisher. My role as an A&R and how I work to develop writers as a publisher is I like to understand what a writer is hoping to achieve and putting the stepping stones in place to help them achieve those goals. And often I'm looking for opportunities to connect a writer that may have identified someone that they'd like to work with, or other writers and producers and potential collaborators, and in the case of writers and producers, potential artists that they'd like to get into the studio with. But along with the A&R team, the whole publishing team, it's important as a writer or as an artist to be really proactive involving that team in an artist or songwriter's movements. So we really need to be across everything that is in a writer or an artist's calendar, including recording plans, touring, releases, marketing rollouts, because each department sees those things in a calendar as a from different angles, and it presents a different opportunity for each department to be proactive in their approach with the artist. For example, the sync team will often see an opportunity to invite music supervisors to shows when an artist is touring in different markets in the world. The A&R teams see opportunities, depending on what market the artist is in, to collaborate with key artists in other markets, or songwriters or producers. The copyright team sees, they need to be sort of really involved in what new releases are coming up, so they can be across new copyrights that need to be registered. And finally, I just wanted to do a quick case study on the way that we've done that very recently. For the artists that are kind of so inclined, we see our role as helping create visibility in international markets, whether that be via synchronization, collaboration, or features. And I think collaborations are a great great opportunities for artists to get a look into other markets. I think recently tracks like Megan Thee Stallion and Yuki Chiba's Mamushi and Jungkook and Kid Laroi and Central C Too Much, and they were like across key markets that they all had visibility in, but it may have sort of bumped them up in those different markets. And those are obviously really big collaborations, but it is scalable, and it works at any level that an artist is at any given time. And it may take some manoeuvring to sort of find the right artist and get it happening, and it might involve a lot of conversations. But I find more and more that artists are open and willing to collaborate on that level. Market to market, they see that those opportunities are important to get a grounding in those different markets. Most recently, we had an artist in Korea on tour, and they spent an extra week or 10 days in market, and they were really, it's a US artist of really good profile, but they really wanted an opportunity to collaborate with a Korean artist to take their profile to another level of visibility here in this market. So we were able to find an artist who was interested in a reciprocal arrangement, meaning that they would feature on each other's tracks in each other's markets. And we got them into a studio and they worked on tracks, and both of those tracks are going to be released in due course with the others featuring on the others' tracks. And clearly for both artists it's going to give them bumps in each other's markets, which is great, and we're really excited to see those sort of opportunities roll out and see where the visibility for each of those artists can end up in each other's markets. Now that's a real clue there, so I have to move away from that because of the secrecy involved in K-pop, but that's me. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them quickly, or I'm happy to see anyone outside after the workshop.
Wonderful, thank you. Wow, that was really informative. A lot of great information there, and the purpose of these workshops is really to dive a little bit deeper into how to unlock these revenue opportunities. And of course, an opportunity for you to talk to all of the speakers is there afterwards and tomorrow as well. So don't forget that. They're all very friendly, they all want to talk to you. Next up, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the world of sync. I keep talking about sync because it is truly such a valuable opportunity, not just for revenue, cash in hand, but also can be a really great marketing tool. So we've got Dan joining us on stage now to talk a little bit more about sync.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Priya. Thank you to everyone at MUCON. Annyeonghaseyo. It's such a pleasure and such an honor to be here. I have to begin by saying that the original presentation I made was much uglier than this because I'm very good at sync and I'm very bad at graphic design. I hope you'll forgive me. So thank you for helping this look a little nicer than it actually is. I'm going to start with who I am. As I mentioned, my name is Dan Koplowitz. I've been working in sync licensing for about 15 years. Before that, I ran a record label by the name of Friendly Fire Recordings. I'm from the United States, but I'm based in Mexico City. Our company has offices all around the world, well, 3 cities anyway, in Mexico City, in Los Angeles, and in Europe. And we represent a large catalog of music. It's about 50 different labels. We've worked with some really wonderful music here in Korea. And from around the world. You can see some of the names here. There's a whole lot more. It's a large selection of artists, labels, and publishers. What do we do? So we're going to talk about synchronization. Matt's previous presentation, which I thought was really, really interesting, was about publishing, broadly speaking. What we do is really one area of what he does. We do a deep dive into synchronization, but to me this is sort of the fun and sexy part of what we do. We've placed music in thousands of projects over the years. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, you may know, the Oscar-winning movie. Lots and lots and lots of TV series, some of which you may or may not be familiar with. We've done work with HBO, Netflix, Hulu, Apple, Amazon, large and small. We've done ads for Google, Toyota, American Express, Tanqueray, Old Forester whiskey. For some reason, we find ourselves doing a lot of alcohol advertisements. Facebook, GoPro, 7-Eleven, ING Financial. We had a huge project in Australia. We've done things with Samsung. We've done things with fashion brands like Gucci and Adidas. Video games. Music is huge in video games. It's a large and growing segment of the sync world, and an incredible way to get your music and get your name out there. We've been lucky enough to work with quite a few video game companies. And one actually that's not here that I should mention is movie trailers. I'm actually proud to say we had a trailer go live yesterday, featuring an artist who some of you may know, a British artist named Kim Wilde. And I'm Mark, I'm going to give you a shout out a little later in this presentation. Don't you worry about that. Lots and lots and lots of syncs. Okay, but what is sync licensing? So let's start with the basics. Synchronization licensing in the simplest sense is any time you match music with a moving image. That could be a TV show, it could be a commercial, it could be a video game, it can be a trailer, large, small, or otherwise. In most countries in the world, including in the US and Europe where we work, any sync use is, or almost any sync use is negotiated. People can't just use a song. They have to negotiate the rights, and they have to buy it. They have to pay for the license, which is why it's an extraordinarily good method to make money for your artist. So there's really two licenses that we're working with. Anytime we do a license, we're really talking about two. The first is called the master recording. This is the sound recording. Imagine this is you go into the studio, you hit record, you play the guitar, you lay down some beats, you scream into a microphone, you have a recording. That's the master recording. Normally, if you're an independent artist, you would own the master recording yourself. If you've signed to a record label, perhaps the master recording lies with them. The other one, which Matt was speaking a little bit earlier, is the publishing or the composition. So this is not the actual recording. This is think of it as the roadmap or the underlying structure behind the song. It's the notes, it's the chords, it's the lyrics. In most cases, when it's not a cover song, if you've written the song yourself, you would have the publishing yourself. If you've done the song with a co-writer, perhaps the publishing is split 50-50 or 25%, 75%. Perhaps if you've signed with a publisher, they control the publishing. In most cases, the master only lies with one party. It's usually either the artist or the label. The publishing license can be a little more tricky if there are multiple songwriters involved. And you see this, for example, in a lot of K-pop, where it's very, very rare to find a song that is purely 100% with one writer and one publisher. There's a lot of, as we say in English, there's often a lot of chefs in the kitchen. Actually, I'm going to go back for one moment and mention that these are normally done equally. So the fees, and we'll get into fees in a moment, are almost always 50-50. So when someone does a license, let's say it's a license for $10,000, it would be $5,000 for the master, $5,000 for the publishing. There's no law or rule that says that that's the case, but I would say it's a very well-established standard for sync. The main exception here is with cover songs, and I'll give a very good example. If you're an independent garage band and you're covering a huge song by the Beatles or by BTS or by Beyonce, you're not going to get paid the same money that they are. So in those cases, and really those cases alone, the publishing fee might end up being a little higher than the master fee. Generally speaking, 98% of the time, they're the same. And when we're negotiating them, which I'll get into in a moment, we often ask for what's called MFN, or most favored nation, meaning that if we're only representing the master recording and the publisher is with someone else, let's say it's with Concord, then we will ask that the master fee be the same as the publishing fee to make sure that all the parties are rewarded equitably. So why should you care? I've found I lived for many years in Los Angeles, and it's probably fair to say that the music supervision and synchronization world in Los Angeles is bigger than any other city in the world, every other city in the world combined. It is growing in Korea, and if I can teach you one thing, or I can impart one value today, is that you should care. This is an extraordinary way to make money, to grow your artist, and to get exposure. And there's really very little downside. I found over the years, this is my 5th time in South Korea, and the first time I was here 10 years ago, it seemed that sync had maybe not reached the level of maturity that it's at now. I've been amazed, even in the last few days, the number of people who've come up to me talking about sync, and I'm so happy that people are excited about this here because it's such a growing market, and it's really something that I think should be part of any artist's strategy as you're thinking about touring, as you're thinking about publicity, as you're thinking about publishing, as you're thinking about all of these things. Think about sync. I can't emphasize enough, these are paid. There's money to be made. It's not always big money, and I don't mean to suggest that you're going to get rich from one sync. When we pitch for syncs in the United States, these range from international ad campaigns that might be, hundreds of thousands of dollars, huge, the type of money that can change your life. Sometimes it's $1,000. No one's going to retire and buy a yacht in the Caribbean on $1,000, but that's money that can pay your rent. But beyond that, beyond the money, this is extraordinary exposure. I can think of a couple examples, and I imagine many of you in the audience can think of some examples as well. I don't know about you, when I watch TV and movies, I have my phone on Shazam. This is how I discover music, and this is how many people discover music. One thing that comes to mind, if you've seen the show Stranger Things, and if you're familiar with Kate Bush, she came out with this song, Running Up That Hill, in the 80s. It was big for a while in the 80s, and then it wasn't. Suddenly it was in the show again, and she has a whole new group of fans. An important thing to note, that when you're licensing things, you keep the rights. You are not selling the song. You can continue to stream it. You can continue to derive money from it in other ways. Unless someone is asking you for exclusivity, you can license it to another TV show. You can license the same song 10 times. You are not giving the song away. Let's talk very briefly about the process. I'm going to try and run through this very quickly because it's a chain. It's a chain of decision makers, and it's important to remember that no one person controls everything. At the beginning, you have the artist, of course, making the music. The songwriter, sometimes that's the artist, sometimes that's someone who the artist is involved with. The record label, maybe if you're an independent artist, it's you, or you're signed with someone. Likewise for the publisher, you saw Matt speak. We know what publishers do. Sync agent, I'm biased, obviously, but this is what I do. And we play a role because we bridge the gap between the artist and the music supervisors. Supervisors get hundreds, if not thousands, of songs sent to them every single day. They're inundated. And a sync agent is someone who has really built relationships with supervisors so that they trust us. They know that we're going to send them good music. There's a few other sync agents here in the room. I don't know if Jace is here. Mark, if you want to raise your hand. These are good people to talk to. These are really talented people who can help you. The music supervisor, if a sync agent is a seller, the music supervisor is the buyer. They're hired by the production. They work for Netflix. They work for HBO. They're paid to find the right song. And finally, they're answerable to the director or the producer. We send them songs, and they put together a batch of ideas for the director-producer who then listens to it, makes some decisions, and says what they want to do. Finally, at the end, there's the studio or the ad agency who control the checkbook, and really they have the final call because they have the money. I'm not going to get too much into metadata because hopefully some of you have seen Mark's presentation on metadata, but I will mention a few things very quickly. Include your information in your song when you're sending it. We use a program called Disco. It's an Australian company. It's fantastic. I cannot recommend it highly enough. They do not pay me to say this. I just like it. You can organize your music. At a very minimum, have your artist name, have the title of the song in English if you're sending it to an English language music supervisor. Who owns it? Who's the master? Who is the publisher? If you can, include the lyrics. Include the year that it came out. Is it an upbeat pop song? Write that. Is there a saxophone in it? Include that. The more information you can get, because as these music supervisors are searching, they're really looking for a needle in a haystack. And if you send them a WAV file that has none of this information, they're not going to pay much attention. I talk a little bit about resources for contacting music supervisors. Obviously, I still think that the best way to do it is to either go through a sync agent, it could be myself or it could be someone else, or through your label or your publisher. But certainly there's nothing stopping you from reaching out to supervisors yourselves. In this case, I would say basic common sense applies. Treat these people as people. They're humans, they're music lovers. Do some research on what they are working on. Look on the Internet Movie Database, look on TuneFind. If you're sending music to a supervisor who's doing a show that's set in 1970 and you're a contemporary band, they can't use your music, even if they like it. So I think this is an extraordinarily important thing. And lead with the best songs. Make them streaming. Again, I really do suggest using disco. But it's never a good idea to attach a bunch of MP3s. Give them an easy way to check out a few songs. If they like it, they will get back to you. And I really think I think that's about it. I don't know if we have a minute or two for some questions. I've raced through this, so I apologize, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. But do we have a question or two from the audience before we wrap up? Not a single one.
No, I think everyone's just taking it in. Yes.
Well, that's it. I tried to race through it. I will mention one more thing. I am very, very happy to connect with as many of you as I can. My own email is dan@friendlyfirelicensing.com. I'm here to discover music. I'm here to make connections. Our company, Friendly Fire Licensing, I think has something of a reputation for working with non-American music. And I'm a huge, huge fan of the Korean music scene. So please, if we don't have the chance to connect while we're here, drop me a line. Follow the same advice that I've given you here. Use disco, send some streaming links, and if I have the opportunity, I will be very happy to check out your music. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Wow, that's a lot of information, but a lot of really good, useful information. Thank you, Dan, for breaking that down so clearly for us. Up next, I'm really excited for our final workshop speaker. He's from a band that has performed at MUCON a few times. I've been following them for a long time, and I've been a fan for a while, and I could not think of any better artist to invite to talk about opportunities around selling merch and selling your IP through non-music ways. So please welcome to the stage Juhwan from Adoy.
안녕하세요. 아도이의 오주환입니다. 오늘 이렇게 뮤콘을 통해서 연사로 참여하게 돼서 굉장히 영광이고요. 전 세계에서 많은 뮤직 인더스트리에 계신 관계자분들이 오셨는데요. 제가 사실 아티스트다 보니까 이런 발표에 익숙치가 않은데요. 좀 너그러이 부족한 부분이 있더라도 잘 봐주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 또 제가 또 영어가 이렇게 굉장히 능숙하지 못해서 한국말로 말하는데 번역하시는 분들께서도 잘 부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼 발표를 시작하겠습니다. 아도이에 대해서 잠깐 설명을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 아도이는 2017년에 데뷔를 해서 지금까지 총 6장의 앨범을 발표를 했고요. 신스팝을 기반으로 한 4인조 밴드입니다. 밴드 소개는 오늘은 브랜딩과 싱크 라이센스 그다음에 어떻게 해서 돈을 벌었는지 수익에 관해서 말씀을 주로 드릴 예정이기 때문에 음악을 만들거나 프로듀싱하는 부분은 조금 뒤로 미루도록 하겠습니다. 브랜딩이 사실 굉장히 저는 개인적으로 정답이 없다라고 생각하는 부분이고 브랜딩이라는 단어는 사실 굉장히 거대하고 또 시시각각 변하기 때문에 제가 브랜딩은 이거다라고 정의를 내리기는 좀 어려울 것 같지만 아도이를 처음에 초창기에 결성을 하고 포지셔닝을 할 때 어떤 식으로 브랜딩을 했는지 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 커머셜 인디 첫 번째 키워드입니다. 커머셜 인디라는 단어인데요. 저희가 처음에 저희 모토로 삼았던 단어입니다. 저희가 처음에 이 단어를 만들었을 때 만든 단어는 아니지만 커머셜과 인디라는 단어를 합쳤을 때 굉장히 재미있는 지점이 있다고 생각했습니다. 보통 인디 뮤지션이라고 하면은 커머셜하지 않다라는 그런 선입견이 있었는데요. 저희는 이제 아도이를 결성하면서 굉장히 커머셜한 밴드로 포지셔닝을 했습니다. 이것은 포지셔닝의 개념인데 저희가 워낙 인디씬에서 오래 활동을 했던 밴드이다 보니까 커머셜한 부분에 집중을 해도 충분히 그런 밸런스가 맞을 것 같다라고 생각을 했습니다. 아도이의 로고입니다. 처음부터 이제 일관적인 이미지를 주려고 노력을 했습니다. 아도이의 로고는 사실 CFC라는 디자인 스튜디오에서 만들었는데요. CFC는 디자인 스튜디오는 굉장히 우리나라의 훌륭한 대기업과 브랜드와 많은 콜라보를 한 그런 디자인 스튜디오입니다. 엔터테인먼트 쪽으로 요약을 드리자면 SM 엔터테인먼트 CI 리뉴얼을 했고요. 또 BTS의 페르소나 앨범의 비주얼 아이덴티티를 담당을 한 디자인 스튜디오에서 이런 아도이의 로고를 만들었습니다. 로고가 굉장히 처음에 중요하다고 생각했었는데요. 음악 외적으로 앨범 아트워크, 로고 이런 것들이 처음에 팬들과 또 리스너들한테 보여줄 수 있는 유일한 소통 창구였기 때문에 저희는 사실 이런 로고 디자인에 힘을 굉장히 많이 썼고요. 로고를 만들 때 가능한 최고의 스태프들과 일을 하려고 애를 썼습니다. 그래서 이런 로고가 탄생을 했고 또 페스티벌이나 또 VJ 영상 같은 백그라운드에서 이런 로고가 지금까지 처음 만들었 로고가 지금까지 활용될 수 있었습니다. 그 다음에 또 브랜딩, 앨범 아트워크에 대한 설명을 잠깐 드릴 텐데요. 앨범 아트워크는 초창기에 저희는 이제 앨범을 발표하고 아카이빙이 쌓일수록 일관된 이미지를 주고 싶었습니다. 스즈게이진, 나가이로시, 브레이크봇, 저스티스, 또 ECM 레이블 같은 앨범들을 보면은 통일성이 있었기 때문에 어떻게 하면 어떤 앨범 아트워크를 하면은 아도이의 정체성을 잘 보여줄 수 있을까라고 생각을 하다가 우리나라의 팝 아트워크를 기반으로 한 젊은 작가인 옥승철 작가와 콜라보레이션을 통해서 저희의 이런 초창기 앨범 아트워크 아이덴티티를 구축하게 되었는데요. 이 앨범 아트워크에는 사실 저희의 밴드명 혹은 앨범명 같은 것들이 전혀 있지 않고 정확하게 작품의 이미지만 넣었습니다. 스포티파이나 멜론 같은 스트리밍 사이트에는 굉장히 많은 앨범이 발매가 되는데요. 사실 굉장히 픽셀이 작아요. 작기 때문에 어떻게 하면 임팩트를 주고 클릭을 유도할 수 있을까를 고민한 끝에 이런 얼굴을 좀 크게 해서 크롭된 이미지를 넣는 아트워크를 선택했고요. 이 앨범 아트워크는 음반업계에서 디자인 경향 변화를 설명할 때 드는 대표적인 사례로 평가될 정도로 과감한 시도가 있었고 또 이런 것들은 후에 굿즈나 LP, 바이닐, 카세트 같은 것들의 판매와도 직결되는 다 연결되어 있었던 그런 구조입니다. 또 뮤직비디오 같은 것들도 굉장히 중요했었는데요. 초창기 뮤직비디오는 비주얼스 프롬의 정진수 감독님과 함께 주로 작업을 했습니다. 그 당시 정진수 감독님은 혁오의 뮤직비디오 디렉터로 유명했었는데요. 저희가 선고철회를 한 끝에 저희 앨범의 초창기 뮤직비디오들은 비주얼스 프롬의 정진수 감독님과 일을 했습니다. 그 외에도 음향 엔지니어, 연출, VJ, 조명, 또 헤어 메이크업, 또 비디오 팀, 영상, 뮤직비디오, 포토그래퍼들까지 가능한 커머셜한 상업 씬에서 일을 하는 최고의 스태프들과 함께 협업을 통해서 저희의 좀 가치를 좀 고급화하는 전략을 선택했다고 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 두 번째 키워드로 바로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. 두 번째 키워드는 스몰 비즈니스입니다. 저희가 이제 아도이가 사실은 독립 레이블입니다. 저는 독립 레이블 엔젤 하우스의 대표이기도 한데요. 아티스트이기도 하면서 직접 비즈니스를 이끌고 있는데요. 지금 한 8년 차 정도의 사업자를 운영을 하고 있습니다. 이 스몰 비즈니스가 중요한데 그 다음으로는 이런 그래프들을 잠깐 설명해 드릴게요. 이 그래프는 레이 달리오라는 헤지 펀드 투자자의 원칙이라는 책에 있는 그래프입니다. 목표 설정을 하고 또 반드시 문제가 발생을 하고 거기에 대한 진단을 내리고 해결을 하고 다음 목표 설정을 하고 이런 그래프인데요. 이게 왜 저한테 큰 도움이 됐냐면 처음에 제가 회사를 설립을 하고 비즈니스를 할 때 멘토가 없었어요. 이렇게 일을 하는 사람도 없고 물어볼 것도 없었습니다. 보통 회사는 큰 회사, 큰 비즈니스를 하는 회사가 있고 아니면 정말 DIY 작은 뮤지션이 있었는데 저는 그 중간에 포지셔닝 개념에서 일을 굉장히 많이 하고 싶었기 때문에 이 레이 달리오의 원칙이라는 책에서 굉장히 많은 인사이트를 얻었습니다. 그래서 끊임없이 이런 그래프들을 반복을 하는 구조로 비즈니스를 하고 일을 했는데요. 이런 독립 레이블이 사실은 굉장히 스타트업과 비슷하다라는 인상을 많이 받았습니다. 굉장히 많은 일을 해야 되고요. 또 대표가 많은 것들에 선택을 해야 되고 또 결정을 내려야 되고 그 결정에서 오는 압박감과 스트레스를 견뎠어야 되는데요. 그런 것들이 굉장히 어려웠습니다. 개인적으로는. 그래서 그런 리스크 관리를 하는 것에 있어서 제가 개인적으로는 사실은 굉장히 힘들어서 콜라보레이션을 할 수 있는 많은 외주 업체들과 컨택을 해서 그런 어려움들을 극복해 나갔었는데요. 또 어비스, 플로, AMA, 안테나뮤직, 뭐 현대카드, 또 재단도 있습니다. 뭐 컨진원 그리고 저희 CJ 문화재단 같은 곳 그리고 유통사인 오차들을 통해서 제가 혼자 할 수 없는 일들은 이런 좋은 파트너들과 협업을 통해서 굉장히 많은 비즈니스들을 할 수 있었습니다. 1년에 저는 보통 한 50개의 프로젝트를 진행을 했는데요. 50개면은 1년에 일주일에 하나의 프로젝트를 한다는 마음가짐으로 일을 했습니다. 보통 인디 뮤지션들이 1년에 뭐 20개, 많게는 30개 공연을 하면 굉장히 열심히 일을 했다라고 뿌듯해하는 경향이 있는데 뮤지션들이 사실은 조금은 게으른 면이 없지 않아 있는데 저는 굉장히 일을 많이 해야 된다라고 생각을 하고 있는 사람이고 또 그렇게 많은 일들을 했을 때 결과값이 좋다라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. 지원 사업 같은 것들은 지원 사업에서 지원을 받고서 해외 공연을 갔을 때 도항비라든지 그다음에 뭐 앨범 지원금 혹은 공연장의 대관료들을 서포트를 해서 수익에 좀 엣지를 살렸고 아니면은 스태프들에게 비용을 줄 수 있는 구조를 만들어서 이런 지원 사업들도 저희는 매년 지원을 해서 뭐 심사하는 과정이 어렵고 이나라 도움이라는 극악한 그런 프로세스를 거쳐야 하긴 하지만 항상 이런 지원 사업도 로테이션을 돌려서 수익화하는데 애를 썼습니다. 수익 구조에 대해서 간단하게 설명을 드리겠습니다. 수익 구조는 크게 세 가지가 있습니다. 앨범, 음원, 그다음에 굿즈, 공연 수익이 있는데요. 아마도 많은 레이블과 뮤지션들이 비슷할 거라고 생각을 합니다. 하지만 저희가 특히 중점을 둔 거는 이 세 개의 수익 구조 파이프라인에 밸런스를 맞추는 일이었습니다. 그러니까 뭐 공연만 한다거나 아니면 뭐 음원 스트링만 한다거나 아니면 굿즈만 판다거나 이런 수익이 비중이 한쪽으로 치우치지 않고 30%씩 나눌 수 있도록 항상 매출에 신경을 썼고요. 또 그 매출 안에서도 엣지를 살리기 위해서 뭐 음원 같은 경우에는 국내 유통사와 해외 유통사를 세퍼레이트, 그러니까 구분지어서 진행을 했습니다. 그리고 앨범 발매 때마다 국내 유통사는 뭐 첫 번째 앨범은 카카오뮤직, 두 번째 앨범은 CJ, 세 번째는 뭐 다른 유통사를 통해서 좀 더 나은 계약 조건들을 항상 유지를 했고요. 해외 유통은 오차들을 통해서 쭉 이어 나가고 있었습니다. 저희는 또 굿즈 이렇게 앨범이 굿즈의 개념으로 또 많이 판매가 되었었는데요. 초창기 앨범부터 바이닐, 카세트 테이프, CD 등을 만들어서 수익에 도움을 받았습니다. 굿즈 같은 경우에는 뭐 기본적으로 뭐 티셔츠, 의류뿐만이 아니라 이렇게 바이닐 플레이어, 뭐 핸드폰 케이스, 컵, 파우치 뭐 이런 식으로 굉장히 많은 굿즈들을 매 앨범 그리고 패션 브랜드의 FW 시즌별로 발명하는 FWSS처럼 굉장히 많은 굿즈를 만들어서 판매를 했었는데요. 지금은 팝업 스토어의 형태가 굉장히 일반화되었지만 저 때만 해도 그런 게 많지 않았기 때문에 그런 식으로 팝업 스토어의 형태로 굿즈를 판매하기도 했고요. 또 이렇게 플랫폼별로 나누어서 뭐 이번에는 네이버와 굿즈 제작을 해서 네이버를 통해서 판매를 하고 그 다음에는 뭐 현대카드, 그 다음에는 마플 샵을 통해서 굿즈를 제작하기도 하고 또 자체 제작을 해서 수익을 극대화하기도 하고 여러 가지 방식들을 통해서 저희한테 맞는 굿즈 상품들을 개발을 하고 판매 유통 루트를 뚫었던 것 같습니다. 최근에 바이닐을 재생산해서 굉장히 또 솔드아웃 시키는 성과를 얻었는데요. 바이닐 같은 경우에도 뭐 서울 레코드 페어를 통해서 팝업 형태로 세일즈하는 경우도 있고 또 현대카드 바이닐 펍 같은 곳에서 수의 계약을 맺고 계약을 하는 경우도 있고 또 해외 여러 바이닐 샵과 다이렉트로 발주를 받아서 진행하는 그런 형식도 있었습니다. 이런 모든 것들에서 가장 중요한 키워드는 저는 밸런스라고 생각을 하는데요. 처음에 그리고 마지막으로 공연 수익에 대해서 설명을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 아도이는 사실 공연의 강점을 가진 팀인데요. 초창기 때부터 뭐 3,000석, 2,000석을 매진시켰던 건 아니고요. 처음에 보면은 2,000석, 200석부터 공연을 시작을 했습니다. 200석부터 공연을 시작을 하고 그다음에 200석을 몇 번 하고 성공을 매진시킨 다음에 500석으로 넘어가고 그다음에 500석에 서브업해서 1,000석, 1,000석에서 1,000석을 두세 번 하고서 빠르게 2,000석으로 넘어가는 그런 공연 이런 역피라미드 구조로 공연을 진행을 했는데요. 이렇게 중간중간에 빌드업하기가 어려울 때는 콜라보레이션을 적극 활용을 했습니다. 뭐 예를 들면 초창기에 팬덤이 많이 형성되지 않았을 때는 뭐 아도이 그리고 뭐 새소년 이런 콜라보레이션을 통해서 새소년의 팬들도 아도이에 유입될 수 있고 또 아도이의 팬도 새소년에 같이 융합돼서 그 덩어리를 키울 수 있는 전략을 선택을 했고요. 또 해외 공연 같은 경우에도 일본에 있는 아티스트 뭐 템파레이와 함께 저희가 한 번 일본에서 공연을 하면은 한 번은 한국에서 공연을 하고 또 그런 식으로 이제 공연을 많이 했습니다. 또 해외 공연 같은 경우에는 크게 세 가지 블록을 만들었는데요. 뭐 유럽, 그다음에 미국 지역이 있었는데 물리적으로 그런 해외 투어를 가는 건 굉장히 힘들고 품이 많이 들고 수익성도 좋지 않았기 때문에 저희는 로컬과 아시아 쪽을 집중했습니다. 초창기부터 영어 가사로 음악을 만들고 활동을 집중을 했는데요. 뭐 태국, 일본, 대만, 필리핀, 말레이시아, 인도네시아, 베트남 등 거의 모든 아시아 국가에서 공연을 했습니다. 초창기에는 이렇게 혼자 일을 하다가 그런 것들이 너무 사실 에너지 소모가 컸기 때문에 저희는 이제 해외 프로모터와 이제 계약을 하고 인터내셔널 매니저와 함께 웨이닝 헝이라는 분인데 웨이닝 헝과 함께 일을 하면서 저희의 해외 쪽 부분을 좀 믿고 맡길 수 있는 그런 파트너를 얻음으로써 해외 공연도 또 한 수익의 축으로 자리매김했습니다. 코로나 시기에는 또 온라인 공연 같은 것들을 통해서 수익을 보전하는데 굉장히 애썼고요. 마지막으로 싱클라이시스는 초창기 리바이스, 뭐 프레드 페리, 제임스, 뭐 아이폰, 삼성 갤럭시 이런 브랜드 광고를 통해서 저희의 이미지를 좀 강화하고 또 아도이의 가치를 좀 올리는 그런 역할을 했었던 것 같습니다. 이런 것들은 사실 저희가 케이스 바이 케이스로 진행을 해서 자연스럽게 얻어진 결과라고 생각을 합니다. 굉장히 많은 브랜드들과 광고를 찍고 일을 했었는데요. 사실 가장 중요한 거는 공연을 열심히 하고 또 앨범을 저희가 6장의 앨범을 만들었는데 코로나 시기를 제외하면 거의 매년 앨범을 내고 활동을 했던 거기 때문에 사실은 많은 인풋을 얻어내고 거기에서 얻어지는 것들을 잘 활용하는 것들이 저희가 수익화했던 비결이었던 것 같습니다. 감사합니다. 혹시 질문이 있으면은 뭐 받고 없으면 내려가도록 하겠습니다. 있으실까요? 네. 없는 걸로 알겠습니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Thank you so much. I always love to hear directly from an artist on how they do it. And Juhwan, you do such a great job across all these different formats. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. I hope you all enjoyed the perspectives, 3 different perspectives from a publisher, sync agent, to the artists themselves on really opening up and unlocking all of these incredible revenue opportunities for you and your artists. So enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy your networking, and I will see you around. Thank you very much.